Today, we're going to show you how we built this one-of-a-kind cribbage table. It's super easy and only uses 5 pieces of wood. First things first, we've got this scrap piece of walnut that was left over from a table, so we're going to mill it down so it is the right dimensions for this table. This table is going to be 30 inches long by 7.5 inches wide, and we're going to make it 22 inches tall. Keep in mind, you don't need a thick piece of walnut like this. You could use a 1-inch thick piece because the holes we're going to drill for the pegs are going to be about 5/8 of an inch deep. So as long as you've got 1 inch or so, you should be good. We decided to use 24-inch by 1.5-inch dowels that we're going to trim down, but first we had to create the recess in the edge of the table for mounting the legs. So we built this little jig on our drill press. It's pretty quick and easy, and it allows us to drill nice holes in the edge of our table without the drill bit wandering. Once we've located where we want the legs, it's time to clamp our piece onto the drill press so that it doesn't move while we're drilling. We are using a 1.5-inch diameter Forstner bit because the dowels that we're using for the legs are 1.5 inch in diameter. You can tell we've got a nice sharp bit for this drilling process. You'll notice a lot of burnt shavings if your bit is not sharp enough. So just keep an eye on that. You don't want to rush it. And sometimes it's good to back off on the drill press to allow the shavings to clear the area. Now that we're done on the drill press, we're going to cut our table legs on the chop saw. These dowels were 24 inches long, and our table is going to be 22 inches tall, but we want each dowel to be proud of the playing surface by about 1/4 inch. It'll just be a little design detail that looks nice when it's all done. So we're trimming off 1 3/4 inches. We decided we're going to attach the legs by screwing and gluing them on, so we're just doing a pre-drill so we don't split the dowel. Now for the fun part. We're peeling our acrylic template. This template's 1/4 inch thick, so it's nice for alignment of the holes. And then we're gonna clean our top surface so that we can prep the area and start drilling. After a quick sand on all sides, we added a small round over detail to both the top and the bottom. This round over detail will soften the overall look of the piece and just make it a little smoother on the hands when you're handling the table. Now it's time to attach our template. We're using this 2-sided template tape from Empire Goods. What we're gonna do is use some painter's tape to put down on the wood before we attach the template because that will help prevent tear out when drilling all the holes. If we just attach the template to the wood and started drilling all of these holes, you may get a little bit of tear out and it's just not gonna be as smooth and good looking when it's all done. It's important to take your time when aligning the template onto the wood because once it's attached and you start drilling, that is going to be the final layout of the table. So take your time here, measure, make sure it's just right before you press that template down and stick it to your workpiece. We decided to keep our playing surface closer to one end so that the far end of the table could be used for the deck of cards when playing the actual game. We are drilling our holes with a 3/16 inch diameter drill bit. And we just used a piece of tape as our depth stop, which is not super critical, but you just want to make sure you drill in about 5/8 or a bit deeper if you've got the thickness of wood to work with. If your wood is a little thinner, you'll have to be a little more careful when drilling the holes to make sure that you don't drill too deep and go through the backside. This can be tedious because there's just under 400 holes, so take your time, take a break if you need to. Or you can do it over on the drill press, which makes it a little easier. Now that we're done drilling, we've got our template removed and our tape removed. Double check, make sure you're not missing any holes because you're gonna want to address that right away before you get to the finishing steps. Next up, we're gonna add some edge details to our table legs. So we're just adding the same round over detail to both the top and the bottom of each of our dowel legs. This step can be done with a hand router or on a router table, depending on what you have and what you're comfortable with. Once we've got our edge detail done, we're gonna quickly hand sand those details and then go back to the main board to do our final sanding. On a board like this, we'll normally sand up to 220 grit because that's our preferred grit to stop before we apply Rubio Monocoat as a finish. We wanted our table legs to sit about 1/4 inch proud of the playing surface, just as a little design detail. So we created this small jig using 2 pieces of 1/8 plywood and just kind of taped it together. It wasn't the best, there's probably better ways of doing this, but got the job done so that we could locate our holes and have those legs sit 1/4 inch proud. Keep in mind, it's important to pre-drill. We are using walnut, which is considered a hardwood, and you don't want to be driving a screw in there without a pre-drill because it'll probably get bound up or split the wood. Between the wood glue and the screws, these will be firmly attached and this table will be rock solid. Now you're probably wondering what we're going to do with those holes because you don't want to see those screw heads on a nice cribbage table like this, but we've got a plan for that. Quite satisfying seeing the table come together at this stage because you can kind of finally see its shape, some of the details, and you know you're getting close to that finish line where you get to apply oil and have a finished project. So we wanted to address the holes in our table legs by using plugs. So we decided to take a piece of wood that was left over from when we cut the top down, just so the wood has a similar tone. We used a plug cutter on the drill press and we'll cut these plugs, pop them out, and then we'll glue them into those holes, tap them in with a mallet, and then we'll flush cut it and you'll be ready to do a final sand and you'll barely notice them. Once our plugs are in, trimmed to size and sanded, it's time to do one last final sand on the piece before we apply an oil finish. We're using Rubio Monocoat Pure to finish this piece because it's a commercial grade oil finish that will be perfect for this setting. The Rubio Monocoat is very easy to apply. You simply wipe it on the piece and wipe it off the piece. And if you end up with a bunch of oil in the holes, you can use compressed air to blast that out of there when you're wiping off the excess oil. That wraps up this table. The only thing left you need to do is get yourself some pegs, which we actually had a really hard time finding, so we decided to get some 3D printed, and they work so well that we actually launched them on our website. So if you're gonna make a project like this, you can get the template, the dowels, the wood finish, the wood, and now these jumbo cribbage pegs in 6 different colors. Let us know what you would change or add to a table like this, and maybe a shelf on the bottom, some cup holders, and we'll show you how we built that too. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe so you keep seeing our content.